Hello Stampers, my name is Linda Bedinger and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in Denver, Colorado. And usually right now I show you a picture of my buddy Puccini, but he is sound asleep. So we took a little picture earlier and I will put that in so you can see him. I have a very fun card for you. It's very fast. It's still using By the Bay. No birds this time. And it's a pretty little card and I think you're going to like it. Let's just get started. Here is my card. And I have used some of the paper, this paper from the By the Bay 6x6 paper, and it is the back side of this one, which I think I used in my last card. And this has got a very Art Deco kind of pattern with some iridescence to it, foiled, so it's very nice. And so I have a panel 4 by 5 1/4 of that on the front of this card. And then I have a small strip of that cut, I think it's 5 1/4 by 5/8 or 3/4 of an inch, 3/4 of an inch to go on the inside. And let's see, then I used, and the only thing I'm changing up on this one is I'm doing this on a very vanilla base. So I'll show you that card here. And so I've made several versions of this. This is the one that's on the very vanilla. This was the one that was done on the white. And the original card that I made was this one, where this panel was quite a bit bigger, and I thought it looked much better when it was more compact. And this has the iridescent pearls on it, and this has those flat back adhesive pearls that came with this suite. And I think with the very vanilla, it looks much better. So the only other pieces that I have then is I have our focal piece image, which is 2 3/4 by 3 3/4, and then a mat for it that is 3 by 4 that goes on the front of the card. Then I have a piece of Sahara Sand that goes on the inside of the card with this strip, and this piece is cut 4 by 5 1/4, and this little piece has to be trimmed down to 5 1/4, which I'll do here in just a minute. So what we're going to do is start by doing our stamping, which we're doing on these two pieces, and I will move some of these pieces out of the way. Now on this one I used two different materials to get the pearlized effect. So on the original one, which is this one with the bigger panel, I used this stuff that they put out before, and I hadn't realized they'd retired it. This was the Pearlized Enamel Effects Basic White, and you can see here how pretty the pearlized look is on there. So if you happen to have some of this around, that will work. This one has that same pearlized effect, but it was done with embossing powder. And let's see, this is the one, was done with embossing powder, so you can see the pearlized effect on that one, and white embossing powder. And I put my Versamark down with a blender pen so that I could put it right where I wanted it. And I heat set it, then I waited until it dried, and I put more Versamark on top, more powder, and did it again. Then I used Wink of Stella over the top of that when it dried. And I think the effects of the two are pretty much the same. This is more white to go with a white background, and this is that this stuff, which turns out to be more of a pearl color. So for today's video I'm going to use this, but you can see that you can do it either way and get that pretty pearlized effect. So let's see here. I'm going to go ahead and do my stamping. Did I show you the inside of the card? Let me just show you the inside of the card. I'm going to move this one out of the way because that was really the prototype, and I like this slimmed down version a lot better. Thank you for everything. It says here, you are a pearl rare and precious. thank you for everything, a little bit of sand and seashells down here, a little wink of Stella, and then my strip. So that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to start with my seashell here, which I'm going to put up, half an inch or so from the bottom. And I'm using crumb cake here. In fact, I think I'm using crumb cake for everything. So there's my shell. Then I have my sentiment here. It says, "You are a pearl, rare and precious." And I'm putting that right up here in this corner. Oh dear, that didn't stamp very well, so I guess I'll do that again on the back side. Let me try that again. I'm going to put my seashell right in here to the right side and up about a half an inch on the card. And I'm doing all of this in crumb cake, as it turns out. And here is my "You're a Pearl, Rare and Precious." And I'm going to set that right down here in this corner and let that soak in for a second. And there we go. And then I have my sand and my shells that I'm going to put down here along the bottom, and I'm going to come off the edge just a little bit so that everything fits on there. And there we go. So I got almost all of the sand and my seashells on there, just the tip is off. And so that now is ready to be mounted on this piece. And I'm going to use my seal to put some on the top and the bottom. And I'm going to turn this so that I can hover with all four sides showing, so that I get my piece on here just exactly the way I want it before I press down. And there we go. I can see all four sides, and that's pretty good. All right, that piece is done. And so now we'll move on to the inside of the card. And I have my "Thank you for everything." And I'll show you the stamp set here in just a second. I'm going to put my "Thank you for everything" right down there at an angle. And then I'm going to repeat my sand and shells down here on the bottom of the card. Okay, that is all the stamping that we have to do. So let me go backwards here and show you a little bit about the stamp set. Here is the Seaside Base stamp set, and I used this shell piece, this shell, the "You Are a Pearl, Rare and Precious," and the "Thank You for Everything." And I didn't use any of the dies on this one at all. So we have our, and you'll have to tell me what you think about using the very vanilla versus the stark white. And the white would work better with the embossing powder and the iridescent pearls. And I think if you use the very vanilla, if you have, actually both of those would work just fine with that on the embossing powder. But I did use the pearls that came with this set instead of the iridescent pearls, because they have more of a vanilla look to them than these do, which are more white. Okay, so the first thing we have here is a card base that is 8.5 by 5.5, scored and folded at 4 1/4, a basic A2 base. Then I have my piece of designer series paper, which is 4 by 5 1/4, that's going to go on the front here. And I'll just add my seal on this one. And you'll notice I'm just putting it in the corners and across the bottom, just in case I might have to move it. And get this on here, make sure I'm going the right direction on the card. And again, hovering so I can see all four sides here. And get this put down so it's got the right margin all the way around, and there we go. Now this piece goes on the front and is raised on dimensionals. And this piece is placed basically right in the center of this one. So I need to line up both of these, and it's exactly 4 inches wide, so it covers the DSP. And there we go. Now then, I am using these little pearls instead of the iridescent white pearls, because I think this looks a little bit better on this card. And these are not perfectly round, which makes it kind of fun because pearls aren't necessarily perfect either. So we're going to put these 3 pieces on here, just like that, and that pretty well, other than the embellishments here, and I'll do that last. And so now the inside of the card, and I have my strip of paper that needs to go here, and that needs to be cut down to 5 1/4 here, and I'm just going to take my snips and do that straight. Let's see if that works. Well, it's a little long, but we can trim it up. So I'm going to put some seal right down the center of that strip and put that in place with the pattern going the right direction. So I'll start at the top and leave the margin, and then I can take the bottom piece here and trim it off. Best to leave it a little bit long than too short, because then you can always trim it and have it come out to be the exact same size. All right, so now we just need to put a little bit of seal on this piece and put that in place on the inside of our card. And we'll add a little wink of Stella and then the pearlized effect, and we'll be all ready to go. And there we go with our piece on the inside. And then I just have to do this piece here. And using this, what I found works the best is to go ahead and put this out. Now, when I used the white embossing powder, what I did was I used Versamark, and I put my Versamark in place with a blender pen. And that way I could get it right where I wanted it to go. And I'm going to use a blender pen on this as well, because some of these spots on here are just a little bit narrow. And so I want to make sure that I get my pearlized effects in exactly the right place. And I suppose I could use a little paintbrush, but I think this blender pen will work just fine. So once that dries, it'll be all ready to go. And I just need to make sure I take this off of my tip and get back to the medium, and that's good to go. All right, so that is my project for the day. Thank you so much for stopping by my YouTube channel today. I do so appreciate it. And if you don't already have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, well, I'd love to be your demonstrator. Or you could join my team. It's always a good time to join Stampin' Up! $125 worth of product for $99, and you start with a 20% discount. And I've had both kinds of people this time. Somebody who called and wanted to understand a little better what it takes and how hard it is and all of that kind of stuff. And one of those people decided not to join, and that's fine too. I want people to go in with their eyes wide open. And then I've had a couple people that went ahead and decided to sign up, and they went ahead and joined. So I added a little wink of Stella to those couple of spots there, and I think that is it. I'm going to let that, yeah, it's already dry. All right, so you'll have to let me know this is like take 2 or 3 for me. So let me share with you the original card that I started with. So I ended up doing several versions. This was the original one I started with. I had the concept, but this panel ended up being too big, and to make the distinctiveness around this one, I used a dauber and inked around the edges. And ultimately, I decided it was just too spread out. I liked this look a lot better because it was more compact. And on this one, I used the pearl effect. This one, I used the embossing powder and the wink of Stella. And this is the one we just made, so I used that pearlized effect. But you can see that on either one, so you'll have to tell me what you think about the white versus the vanilla. I kind of like it on the vanilla a little bit better. And the thing you would change there is these iridized pearls match the white, and these adhesive back pearls match the vanilla a little bit better. So there we go. That is my project for the day. Yeah, you'd have one full quarter, so we'd have to get March, April, May out, and then it's June, July, and August. So you're going to go a full quarter before you have to make your first minimum, and that would put you at the end of August or September 1st, which is actually the end of the year for Stampin' Up. And I have a draw once every month, a $60 shopping spree on me, and how you get yourself in the drawing is by placing an order of any size on my store, lbedinger.stampinup.net. You can get to it through my blog, www.inkandingenuity.com. And I'll have this one up on my blog in a couple of days. And this one doesn't lend itself to a kit because it's mostly stamping. So I may have this card up for sale. We'll see. And there will be a new section on my blog that will be cards for sale. So let's see. I think that's it for me. I will be back soon with more cards, more projects, and more tips. Bye.